There was another queen, before the Golden Order, before the Erd Tree ruled everything, before death was sealed away and the world was told it could live forever. There was a queen who carried death in her hand, and she was winning. Her name has almost disappeared. The game never shows her face. Her sword was locked at the bottom of a tower no one was meant to find. Her followers were scattered, leaderless, left to rot at the edges of a world that erased everything she stood for. That is not an accident. That is what happens when someone loses to the Queen, not just in battle, in history. The Gloam-Eyed Queen was an Empyrean, chosen by the Two Fingers, just like the Queen herself once was. She carried the rune of death. She built an army around it, and she sent them to hunt gods, not demigods, gods, and they succeeded. This was not a rebellion. This was a replacement, and it was already working. She was not a rebel without cause. She was not a rogue power acting against the natural order. She was chosen. The same Two Fingers that elevated the Queen, that guided her to the gate of divinity and made her a goddess, chose the Gloam-Eyed Queen first. That detail gets buried, but it changes everything. Because this was not an outsider attacking a legitimate system. This was the system producing a rival from within itself. The Gloam-Eyed Queen was an Empyrean, a being with the potential to become a vessel for the Elden Ring, to become the next god, to define what the world was allowed to be. And her gift was death, not as punishment, not as corruption, as power. She carried the rune of death, the force that governs the end of all things, and she channeled it through black flame, through a sword built to kill what was not supposed to die. Around her, she built something, the Godskin Apostles, raised from birth, wrapped in a cloth sewn from skin, trained for one purpose, to hunt gods, and they did not fail. She was not born outside the system. She was born inside it, and that made her far more dangerous. Two Empyreans, one world. That is the problem, stated simply, because the lands between cannot hold two centers of divine authority. A world built on singular truth, singular structure, singular grace, cannot function with two sources of ultimate power pulling in opposite directions. The Queen had built something total. One god, one order, one path forward. Everything beneath the Erd Tree. Everything aligned to the same source. Everything governed by the same rules. And then there was the Gloam-Eyed Queen, not opposing the system from outside, existing within it, with a power the system could not absorb. Because the rune of death does not negotiate. It does not align. It does not fold into a larger structure and become something manageable. It ends things, gods included. And a queen who controls the end of gods is not a subject. She is a successor. The Godskin Apostles were already hunting, already succeeding, already proving that the divine was not untouchable. Every god they killed was a crack in the foundation. Every black flame that landed was a question the Golden Order could not answer. If gods can die, why follow one? If death can be wielded, who controls it? The Queen knew the answer she could not say out loud. Whoever holds death holds everything. This was never about rebellion. It was about which queen got to define what the world was allowed to become. She did not go herself. That matters. When the Gloam-Eyed Queen needed to be stopped, the Queen did not raise an army, did not march, did not meet her rival on equal ground and let the outcome decide the future. She sent Maliketh, her shadow-bound beast, her half-brother, a creature bound to her by something older than loyalty, by the very nature of what he was. A shadow does not choose its owner. It does not question. It does not hesitate. It simply moves when she moves, and strikes when she commands. That choice reveals something, because sending Maliketh was not just a military decision, it was a statement. The Gloam-Eyed Queen was an Empyrean, a being of equal divine potential. To face her directly would be to acknowledge that. To send a shadow instead was to refuse that acknowledgement entirely. You are not my equal. You are not a rival worth meeting. You are a problem to be handled. And Maliketh was very good at handling problems. There was no negotiation, no offer of surrender, no attempt to absorb her power into the existing structure. Just Maliketh, moving through the dark, toward a queen who never saw a beast coming. She didn't fight her rival. She erased her, and she never had to look her in the eye to do it. Maliketh won. That part is not a mystery. The lore does not linger on it, does not describe the battle, does not name the location, does not record who witnessed it. It simply states, she was defeated. And that absence is deliberate, because a battle that is not recorded cannot become a story. A story that does not exist cannot become a symbol, and a symbol cannot inspire the next queen who decides to pick up a god-slaying sword. The Gloam-Eyed Queen's defeat was not just military, it was archival. Her sword, the God-Slayer's greatsword, the weapon that channeled death itself, was locked at the bottom of the divine tower of Caelid, not destroyed, hidden. Her followers were scattered, not executed en masse, simply left without direction, without purpose, without the source of their power. A leaderless army does not fight, it dissolves. And the rune of death, the thing that made her dangerous, the thing that gave the black flame its power to kill gods, was pulled from the Elden Ring entirely, sealed inside Maliketh's blade, buried in the one place no one would ever willingly go, gone, not because it was destroyed, because it was contained. The queen didn't just defeat her rival, she dismantled everything that rival had ever built, and made sure no one could rebuild it. Most channels cover what happened. This one covers why she allowed it. If that's the version you want, subscribe. The defeat of the Gloam-Eyed Queen was not the end of the plan. It was the beginning of it, because the moment Maliketh returned, the queen moved. She reached into the Elden Ring itself, and she removed death. Not from the world entirely, from the law that governed it. The rune of death had always been part of the Elden Ring, part of the structure that defined reality in the lands between. Life, death, the cycle that everything moved through. She broke that cycle deliberately, gave the rune to Maliketh, told him to seal it, and watched as the world she governed became something it had never been before, eternal. Her demigod children could no longer die their fated deaths. And those blessed by grace would return, always, to the Erdtree. The cycle of death and rebirth was replaced by something cleaner, something she controlled, and with that single act, she earned a title the world would never question. Marika the Eternal. Not a name she was born with, a name she built, from a victory no one was supposed to understand. The Golden Order did not begin with grace or light or the promise of a better world. It began with a queen who took death off the table and called it salvation. She didn't just win the war, she rewrote the rules so the war could never happen again. She was defeated, not destroyed. That distinction has haunted the lore ever since, because the game never confirms what happened to her. No death scene, no grave, no record of where she went after Maliketh took everything she carried. She simply stopped appearing. And in a world where death was just removed from the equation, that absence means something different than it used to. Could she have died before the rune of death was sealed? Possibly, but the timing is never confirmed. Could she still exist somewhere, bodiless, displaced, waiting in a realm where all manner of death washes up? The lore does not say no. And then there is Melina, a daughter of the queen, burned and bodiless, carrying a sealed eye that she never opens until the very end, until the world is already on fire, until she looks at the tarnished who destroyed everything and promises to deliver exactly one thing, destined death, and opens her eye, gloam, dark, the color of twilight, the color of a queen who was never quite finished. Nothing is confirmed. From Software has never said the words, but the pieces are arranged too deliberately to be coincidence. A defeated Empyrean with no confirmed death, a daughter with a hidden eye and an obsession with destined death, a sealed power that keeps finding its way back into the wrong hands. The queen removed death from the world, but something that carries death never fully disappears. It waits. She erased her rival from history, but history has a way of sending things back.